Hey everybody, Jesse Reed here with Dropout Entertainment. I'm here with Dylan Hennessy. We got a new track out today that we're going to be talking about. How's your day going, Dylan?
Awesome, man. I was out last night at Handlebar, celebrating the release, go do a little open mic and hang out with some friends and stuff like that. So a little groggy this morning, but not from alcohol, just from not sleeping enough, maybe.
That's
But
amazing. Tell us, I'd love to hear more about the night, and I'm sure other people would too. I know you're a really fun guy here in the Toronto scene, so
oh man,
No plans, follow me now, please. Would you clap your hands? All we can do is dance. All we can do is dance. All we can do is dance. All we can do is dance.
man, and like last night was so good. I got to see so many people because Handlebar has such a great open mic scene and has built out so beautifully over the last several years. And I got invited out by JC Sandoval from We the Crooked, and I play in his band Saint Oval. I'm his drummer, and so he was like, "Yo, let's all go ahead and do some open micing." And he brought out a bunch of people from that scene, and it was just like a big convergence of a lot of groups, and it was a lot of fun. We
nice.
all ended up going out to Drum to Burn afterward for a little bit, and then ended up in like late night karaoke. It was classic. It was a lot of fun.
I love
Yeah,
that. I love that. Yeah, there's always a lot of feelings that go into the release day, right? As well.
sure.
Something that I'm sure this song you've been working on for quite a while. And to finally have it out. All We Can Do Is Dance came out yesterday. How's
Yeah,
the feeling of it coming out?
it's good, man. And for anyone that's been in music for a little bit, release day is kind of like you build it up to be this big mountain usually. And the reality is it's more like a beginning and a launch rather than like the thing. And so I have to keep that in mind because really it's like, you know, things don't just happen in a day. They never do.
Yeah.
Um, but it's a milestone. And to get to that milestone for this, definitely very excited. And the response for day one, as good as that can be, uh, it was. So I was really happy with that. And reception and feedback I've gotten from people are really enjoying it. It's a bit different than anything I've released before. So it's nice to see the positive reception from people for sure.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's one thing I love about when I know that you've got new music coming out is I'm never quite sure which direction it's going to be in.
Yes, I love that.
Yeah, so like the last time I saw you live would be when you were doing the Moby's radio show. Um,
Okay, yeah, yeah.
there's that direction. I know I've seen you at the sold out Eminem tribute shows. I know I've seen
Yeah,
folk stuff, looping stuff, and now this is a really different direction from what I've heard anyway.
yeah, somewhere between an Eminem tribute and like progressive metal and and then this, which is a lot more like dance pop, right? Uh, so over the last several years, and I'm glad I took the time to do it, but it was a big process of like trying to sort sounds into different spheres and like create space for all the different things. Because like one of the things I ran into, especially in my 20s, was like, I don't know how to market a guy like me. And there's not this giant intersection of music fans that want to listen to progressive metal and dance pop, right? So I have my project like Mobius Radio, this more conceptual narrative rock prog thing, Luminil, which is all like guitar shred music. And I have like a folk project with my dad under two shots of Hennessy. Like you said, the Eminem show, the tribute there. And the remainder of it has been what I kind of wanted to focus on over the last little bit is just like all singer-songwriter tangential sounds. And when I say singer-songwriter, people usually think of like folk, right? Because that's typically what's associated with it. But really, like hip hop is singer-songwriter, R&B is singer-songwriter, reggae is singer-songwriter, soul is singer-songwriter. Like there's a lot of different things that fall under that umbrella.
Right.
And this is one of those, I guess, right? Where it's not like a singer-songwriter song, but it kind of is.
Definitely, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you really did mix a lot of elements from a lot of these different genres that you were pulling out. Like I feel like this song, it is very dance and pop, but yeah, also very, very kind of hip hoppy, and also got a lot of like retro feeling to it.
Yeah.
Were you aiming for any specific genre? Or were you trying to
Yeah,
put
I think
it all
the initial
together?
thought was like I wanted to try to find a blend between like Daft Punk, like Random Access Memories era Daft Punk and Mac Miller, who I had just gotten into and was like beginning to listen to a bunch. And then I actually kind of like hit a wall for a few months after I wrote the first verse and the chorus and was like, where do I want the second verse of the song to go? And eventually landed on like, oh, maybe I should start coming in with some singing, and then thought like, okay, well, let me try to dig into a little bit of like Michael Jackson and The Weeknd for that, and make some callbacks to the first verse, and eventually figured out the direction to go for it. So yeah, the main influences there, I guess, are like Daft Punk, Mac Miller, MJ, and a little bit of The Weeknd.
Amazing, amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah, I love how it all came together. So you know, the song takes you in so many directions, but it's also all one cohesive journey. Like you added a lot of sections to this, and it's really cool how
yeah,
they all tie together, even though they all give you a slightly different feeling as you're going through it.
sure, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and you mentioned Daft Punk there. I know one thing that really got me. I don't really even know how to describe it, but the almost little robot voice that came in those
Yeah, the
in
vocoder
the
voice.
beginning.
Yeah, that's definitely signature of their sound, and I love using it as a production element. I've done it in a lot of tracks like that I've produced for other people, and I just like messing around with it on my own, and always wanted to incorporate it into something of mine, and I think I found a good space for it. So yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, I loved it. It felt like it was really scratching one of those little earworms, you know?
nice, love it.
And I know you recorded everything on this track yourself,
Yeah.
almost all exclusively at home, except for I think the drums were in the East Coast.
Hey, yeah, this man did his research. That's true. Yeah, like, you know, I've been playing a lot of instruments for a long time, and just as I got into producing, I wanted to be producing my own stuff and have just treated production like its own instrument that you got to practice. And yeah, like this one came out of the instrumental first and then figuring out what to write around it. Um, Initially with like electronic drum loops, which some of those are still in the final track. But then I got the chance to record drums for a bunch of stuff when I was out of Moncton in the fall, and just took in as many songs as I could think of that I could use having live drum tracks for, and tried to record all of them in like a short amount of time.
Nice.
And this was one of those. And so then it was cool coming back to produce it and be like, all right, how do I blend these two elements together? So there's some points where it's just electronic, some points where it's just acoustic, and some points where it's a little bit of both.
Yeah.
And I've never done that on a track before, so that ended up being like a fun thing to try to mess around with.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's one thing I'm really curious about you, you know, every time I do see you, I feel like with everything new, my mind is always blown. Like you are such a technically just such a technically good player. And it seems whenever I see you doing stuff live, it seems so easy. It's just coming kind of seamlessly to you, even though you're doing these complex parts while you're singing. And I know, again, with this, you did the drums, you did all the producing, you did all the recording. How much time in a day, on average, do you put into music to get to the point where you are? And how long have you been doing this? Like, how much music have you put into life so far?
Oh man, like the 10,000 hours are there for sure. But I mean, I started playing guitar when I was 10. My dad got me a guitar for Christmas. And, for the first year of that time, it was like it just sat in the corner of my bedroom. And I wish I could remember better the moment where I decided, let me pick this up again. But I can just remember like being 12 and just I was getting into guitar now. Um, and in high school, my social skills were like non-apparent. So I just was at home playing. A lot of my like preliminary chops came out of just years in high school of feeling a little bit isolated, but also like having some passions I could dig into. It was that and skateboarding. And like I still do both of those things a lot. So um yeah, like that's where that came in. And just throughout the years, just keeping on trying to learn, and then I was always drumming a little bit, but then in my late 20s, I got my first electronic kit, which really gave me the chance to like practice on a regular basis, and started taking that a bit more seriously with the goal of like being able to do session work on my own stuff. And this is the first track I've released where I've gotten to do my own acoustic drum session on it, which was really cool to do. For a lot of guitar players, you can kind of haphazardly play bass as well. So started playing into that a little bit more over time. And you know, I'm not much of a keys player, but I did play the outro solo on synth, which was fun to do for this song. And then figured out like the unison line for guitar. So I don't know. There are some periods in life where I'm definitely devoted to practicing a lot more than others. My focus over the last year has been less about practice and more about producing and just using what I've already got. Um, which is kind of practice in and of itself in some way. Like I said before, I treat production like its own instrument, right? So there's some days where it was like I was working on stuff for maybe half an hour here or there, but I can remember like, for this and for some other singles that are going to be coming out, that there were days where I would have the day free, wake up, make a cup of coffee, walk to the computer, produce, edit, go back to bed. And like that happened on a number of days just because I was like, I got to finish the thing. So yeah, like it fluctuates over time, I guess, is kind of the answer.
Amazing, amazing. Yeah, that's and when you wake up the next day after a full day session like that, what are you feeling? You're like, yeah, that was awesome. You're like, holy shit, that was a whole day.
Uh yes. Both of those for sure. I had this thought in my mind that like kept driving me forward of like, no one's going to do this for you, Dylan. You like or rather like it's not gonna do itself.
Yeah,
Like if you want those fine details to appear in your song and you want things to sound tight, just got to put in the hours and do it, right? And so it's arduous, but like you see slow progress. And I've done enough productions now to know the feeling of like how satisfying it is when you get your final result. So it's just like, all right, I'll get there.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I love that way of looking at it, and that ties in back into something you were saying about the about this track as well. The world's kind of in a not kind of the world is in a crazy place right now, and it
I
has
would say
been
so.
for the last while.
Yeah, yeah.
A quote that I saw you said that is, the only way out is through, which is part of what
Yeah.
inspired you to put this song together. Can you touch a little bit more on that point?
Yeah, sure. And like for some other singles that I have coming up, might even touch on them a little bit more than this one does. But this was like a more fun approach at that sort of thing where it's like, sort of the vibe I'm trying to capture here is like just being grateful for what you have rather than wishing for what you don't.
Yeah,
Um, because like that's all we can do, right? And I don't know, it's really easy to feel pessimistic right now, and I fall into it a lot myself. Um, but at the end of the day, like you don't have other options really. And so then it becomes a choice of with wherever you're at, if you're going to try to lean into the things that bring you happiness wherever they are. And it's easier said than done, you know, but at least let me try to put out a message of people just like, you know, lean into your communities and try to express yourself through whatever means you can. So, and this song particularly is like just someone in the first verse just going through the daily grind of stuff, sort of questioning what's going on. And then in the second verse, try to actually like personify life itself as a woman on the dance floor that like someone's trying to court and like just go flirt with life again. Um, yeah. So I think that's as much as I can say on that for now.
yeah, no, that's awesome. I love I love the messaging of the song, and I love I love the feeling that the instruments give you. It's so there's a lot of complex parts in there, but it's also so dancey and so pop forward. Like,
Yeah, like I don't know. I think a lot of musicians will go through this journey of like you begin learning an instrument, like let's pick guitar, and you start to develop a little bit of chops, and then you see all these like guitar heroes and these people who can really do crazy stuff on their instruments, right? So you want to get there. So you
yeah,
start practicing all of your scales and like your sweep picking and your alternate picking and all your shredding chops and whatever. And eventually you're able to play some of the stuff, but then you realize that like all the stuff over here is also really valid music and also moves people beautifully.
yeah.
And you can get stuck here for a while, right? So I wanted to start coming back here a little bit, but maybe try to bring in a little bit of what I love over here into here and try to find some stuff that's in between. So in this song, that's like, it's a really simple 4/4 groove and the chord progression repeats, but the chord progression isn't like the most obvious chord progression I could have picked. Um, I'm maybe going to alienate some listeners that don't know chordal arrangements and stuff like that, but it starts on a C major 7 and then goes to a C minor 7. It's just like a weird switch, but it's odd and fun. When you get into like the repetitive flow, it just sort of all blends together. Um, but I try to do some things that are like, I love when songs have stuff that musicians can look at and go, wow, that's a cool musical idea, but that someone who doesn't know music theory just goes, oh, nice. I like this,
Yes. Yes.
So,
That was cool for some reason.
yeah, exactly. Give it something for everybody, I guess,
Yeah.
right? Do my best to. Yeah. So that was a goal with this song for sure, and with a lot of what I'm going to be releasing under my own name. So,
Okay. Yeah, that was what I was going to ask you next to. You mentioned you got a few things in the barrel here. For any fans, are they going to be hearing more of this kind of style, going a few different directions, or yeah, what's coming up for 2026?
some of it does, and some of it doesn't. Um, Now, for whoever is listening and cares to dive a little bit deeper into this stuff, I guess this is all kind of leading up to. I do have a new record that I'm going to be releasing over the summer, and that album is called The Grace of Connection. And part of what I wanted to do with that is kind of theme the album around connection, whether it's like connections that I've made in my life with different people and connection to like my experiences with different people. But then that's also expressed through like connection to different genres and sounds that all work together. It's also expressed through connection of collaborations because there's a lot of collabs on the album. Um, and that was like where the thought of that started was like, oh, I want to start working with a lot more people. And so I did end up having a bunch of songs that are just me that work well for this, but I've got some collabs with some artists from some different cities. And you'll actually hear in 10 days, I'm releasing a remix for this song that features 4 rappers. So that's going to be a lot of fun as well. But yeah, like on that, I would say there's hints of R&B and pop and folk and I guess disco and stuff like this as well, right? So um, stuff to make you dance and stuff to make you ponder.
Amazing. I love that combo. Yes, you mentioned a lot of different genres that kind of influence not just this song, but the other music that you put out. Who would you
Yeah.
say have been your main Canadian influences?
Good question. Canadian influences specifically. The first one that comes to mind is probably the Tragically Hip, just from like being a kid and my dad introducing them to me at a young age, and me and him connect on the hip so much. I've listened through their whole discography. I love the hip. Other Canadian. I think here for a second because I haven't put that spin on this question before. Yeah, I guess I'm just gonna name a bunch of like my favorite Canadian artists. They might be big or not. Um, I come from like the Toronto rock community in a lot of ways, like spent my 20s going out into that scene. And of those people, like probably my favorite staple is the Anti Queens,
Nice.
who I've gone to see play like at least 20 times. I think they kick so much ass. I don't think they're a particular influence on this record or anything, but just watching them has been really influential.
Yeah.
Uh, Favorite Canadian live act that I've ever seen is probably Walk Off the Earth.
Nice. Okay.
Blew my mind. Insane live show. Um,
I could see that really like I remember with the Mobius radio. I forget the name of the tubes.
oh
Uh
yeah, the Boomwhackers.
the Boomwhackers. Yes, that
Yeah,
definitely reminded me of
yeah,
of
it's
the
that kind of thing for sure. But they have like techs on the side of the stage who are like throwing ukuleles at them and stuff. It's wild. Um, Let me think here. Favorite Canadian influences. This is one of those questions. I'm gonna get off this interview and immediately like 10 are gonna come to mind. I'm gonna be like,
Yeah.
what the hell, man? Um,
Just text them to me. I'll put them up through text on the screen, you know.
yeah, all right. All right. Cue the text answer from me having pondered this and actually figuring out now.
Amazing.
That's
Um,
funny.
okay, so yeah, we talked a little bit about what is coming up for
Ah,
2020.
damn, there it is. Devin Townsend.
We're,
Devin
we're-
Townsend is a huge. Devin Townsend is a huge one.
even
Heck
better
yeah.
because you actually already mentioned that in the interview too.
Yeah, that's right. I'm like, it was right there. let's run this question back.
Uh, so yeah, we were talking a little bit about 2026. We just wrapped up 2025. What would you say has been your favorite musical memory of 2025?
Probably my East Coast tour from this past year. It almost didn't happen, but I'm glad that it did. I managed to book things in a way where it was like I had 3 or 4 gigs in a row, and then I had 3 or 4 days off. And I just got a new car last year, and part of that was like I'm going to do some car camping, and I'm going to go just spend some leisure time around the East Coast and like camp out under the stars and all that stuff. I didn't end up doing much of that because what popped up was that along the road, I ended up having some good opportunities to record with friends of mine, and so it was like every day that I wasn't performing, I was probably recording. So my buddy Corey in Quebec City. Shout out Corey Kameda, also a Godin Guitars endorsee. Uh, did acoustic sessions with me, so we got some really good acoustic sounds for some stuff. And then once I got out to Moncton, staying at my buddy's, uh, shout out Louis Mark Mature at Chez Louis Studios for getting drums set up in his space that me and my dad recorded our album at actually. And got some drums set up in there and just tried to rip through a bunch of recording for drums. Uh, Probably not all of it's going to get used, but a lot of it will, including this single got recorded along this tour also. So that experience definitely got me fired up for like wanting to get back to like, okay, it's time to release some Dylan Hennessy music. I think I know like the seeds of where I want this to go. And then sitting and beginning to get at some producing at the end of last year and find some direction and some flow through how I wanted to move through 2026 got me all fired up. So, and yeah, like as soon as I got back from that East Coast tour, I was like so engaged with production in a way that I haven't been for years. So I would say like, yeah, the last few months of the year really wrapped up nicely, and that began with that East Coast tour. There's so many great memories when you go out east too. I mean, like the culture out there is amazing. There's just a little bit of a simpler life sort of a feel, right? Smaller towns, kinder people. Uh, you get the coastal air, you get the north end of the Appalachians as you're driving through, just like these infinite rolling hills and mountains, and like it's really beautiful, and it's a great place to be. If you ever considered going out to the East Coast, like yeah, it's a worthwhile stop in life. I feel like for sure.
Amazing. Yeah, such a beautiful place and such a different vibe altogether, as you're saying. That's yeah, no, that's cool.
Here, I'll tell you a little story about something that happened on one of these East Coast tours because this is like related to something coming up. But you know, like one of the things that sticks out to me in my memories of like the East Coast, I do this annual East Coast run, right? And the second time that I did it, which would have been in 2022. I set my busking equipment up on Argyle Street, which is kind of like their Queen Street out there. There's a lot of pedestrian traffic and stuff. And I'm playing for like half an hour. I've got some tips in my jar, and this guy walks by me and he eyes my tip jar and swipes it and runs off into the distance. And it's the only time I've gotten like robbed while out performing. And there's a security guard that tried to chase him, but the guy got away. But this is like in the middle of a big crowded area. Like a lot of people saw it happen. And frankly, like my loops were still going, so the music didn't even stop, right?
Right.
Um, but what happened was like everyone that saw that happen just like started reaching in their pockets and trying to pull out change and $5 bills and my case was still open. So they refilled me basically to like where I was right before I got robbed. And it was just one of those things where I'm like, this would not have happened this way in Toronto for sure. Um, and that was an experience that really stuck with me, especially when like half an hour later, guy walks up to me who's holding an acoustic guitar and he says like, "Hey, I was gonna come busking here. Can we jam?" I'm like, yeah, sure. So this guy ends up becoming a really close friend of mine, and we wrote a song about that experience.
Wow.
And that's going to be one of the songs that's coming out over the next few months.
Amazing.
So yeah, it was a really eventful day.
Kidding. No kidding. That's
Yeah, and like a great example of East Coast hospitality and just the attitude out there of just like looking out for everybody in a way that like in Toronto it's just too busy, it's too much chaos. I don't blame the people. There's so much going on here, right? And you give people like a little bit of space to breathe, and the humanity comes out. And it has a lot less to do with like people in Toronto suck than just like people in Toronto are inundated. And there's so much going on that if you peeled some of that back, it would be the same way here too. Um, because on the whole, people are good. It's just like goodness is a lot quieter than evil, right?
Yep.
So you tend to notice that guy that robbed me a lot more than the 20 people who were ready to help. But they're all there silently,
Yep.
right? And if you don't give people the space and the opportunity to feel like they can connect with their environment and their community, they're not going to help. And it's not because they don't want to, it's because they don't even realize that they can in some ways. It's just there's so much going on, there's so much information. People feel so guarded from what's happening all the time that it's like they don't even have the space to reach out to people like that. So you get to these smaller towns and you get to some smaller places. And it's not like Halifax is small, but small, it's simpler than Toronto for sure.
Yep.
And you feel it in the way that you interact with people. But they're the same people in a simpler environment in a lot of ways. I'd like to believe that people in Toronto would still help out that way if they kind of felt like they could, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, a little bit of a long story, but
Oh, that's incredible. Actually, I think that's a great way to tie this up here. I think that's a nice, yeah, a great Canadian ending to the interview here. That's I
yeah,
can't wait
like,
for this new song coming out. That's what a story.
yeah, thanks, man. It's a song called Sunsets Down in Halifax. It's like a Maritimes reggae song. And when we were on the East Coast, we did shoot a little DIY music video for it.
Nice.
And the story of me getting robbed is in the lyrics and stuff. And then this buddy of mine who I met there, like his second verse is about him trying to like convince me to get my ass back out there and like hired a horn player for it. It sounds awesome.
Now,
So,
this
you
uh,
know, in
this is
in the
definitely.
singer-songwriter sphere, it's just like another kind of palette.
I love that. Yeah, that's definitely given me tragically hip vibes. It's a real Canadian.
Yeah, it's a little bit of Canadiana for sure. Yeah.
Love it.
Damn, I didn't think about that. You're totally right.
Cool. Yeah, no, that's amazing. But yeah, we'll wrap her up here. The last thing I want to ask you, because I know this song has, some great messages about, you know, enjoying life even when times are tough sometimes. You got any last words of inspiration? Anybody need some extra to start off the new year here?
Yeah, I think it's important to remember that your fellow person, like the person you're walking down the street beside, is probably a good person, right? And it's easy to forget that with what we see around us, with information being curated for us to sort of like get a rise out of us, because that tends to do well in algorithms and stuff. But, for every one bad actor, there's like 20 people that want to help. And they're just quiet because like goodness is quiet and evil is very loud. But generally people are really good. And I think the best way to remind yourself of that is to like engage with community, which is like a really simple example of that is just going out and dancing. And even though like you're like, that's not community, well, in the moment it is. You know, you're in this group of people and we're all sort of there for the same reason. And, there's any number of examples that I could do from my life, whether it's like going to a jam or just like going out to see a show, there's community there. If I go to the skate park and everyone's skateboarding together, like that's community there. My family is a really big family. We got a big community there. And, communities are like one of our bedrocks of existence and purpose, I feel like. And your community is all around you and it's filled with good people and they're quiet, but they're there and they want to connect to you because they feel the same way.
I love that answer so much. That's so true. You're right. Like there is especially I feel like as people first come to Toronto, a lot of people sometimes have a hard time finding their community. But as you said, there is communities everywhere, but you gotta want to be part of it, and you got
Yeah, and but like again, if you're afraid to jump into those things, like generally people are going to be pretty accepting. And if they're not, it speaks a lot more about them than it does about you.
100%.
But I I'm gonna lean toward like the majority is probably gonna be a lot more accepting than you would imagine.
Yep,
You
yep.
know, that's definitely been my experience of like, I try to engage with a lot of different communities. Also, like musically, like whether I'm gonna reach out and like go and see some hip hop events, or if I'm gonna go to a folk singer songwriter circle, or if I'm gonna go watch the Anti Queens go play a punk rock show. It's like all of those have a lot of really good people that are trying to support their communities. Even though like, you know, I can definitely remember growing up and there being like a lot of division between genre clashing and like the kind of people that they represent and stuff like that. Like it's not so different.
100%. And yeah,
Yeah.
I love that. I love that way of looking at it too. Like, regardless of what kind of people are there, they're all there for one connected thing, right? They all really care about something and they're all trying to support it. Like that's
And they're all trying to connect with each other and support their community too.
yeah,
I had this amazing experience of like, the band Trampa from Brazil.
definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. So they came up to Canada like every year as a part of the Indie Week circuit. And they recently came back to play at the Bovine Sex Club. And what was crazy to me was like, for as good as the show was, the best part of the show that I got out of it was that a band from Brazil had the power to get the Toronto community that hadn't seen each other in years back together.
Yeah.
That was wild because there was like 30 or 40 people there that I hadn't seen in a very long time that all came out to support those guys
Yeah.
and was like, you guys are from halfway across the planet and did something special here for us. You're amazing. Thank you. You know?
Man. Yeah, that's such a great example. Amazing.
Like, yeah, that was a really cool night. Trampa are great. Shadow Trampa.
Definitely. Definitely. Yeah, no, I just saw them down at Venue X venue at the end of last year and they were
Yeah, sick. Oh, dude, they're killer.
yeah.
Yeah,
Amazing. So take away here, dance the nights away and join some communities.
there you go. That's it.
Awesome. Definitely. Yeah. So Dylan, thanks so much for taking the time here. Anybody who hasn't heard the track yet, make sure you give it a listen and there's some new music coming very soon.
Yeah, there you go. Check out All We Can Do Is Dance on all platforms and all that good stuff. Follow along at Dylan Hennessy Music on all socials. If you need someone to come and do a one-man band show at any engagements you got coming up, if it's a wedding or like just a party or whatever, hit up your boy because I do that. And otherwise, keep your ear out and check out what I got coming next. Thanks for following along. Thanks for checking out the piece. Thank you, Jesse. Thank you, Dropout.
Thank you. Okay. Bye, everybody.
All we can do
Peace.
is dance. All we can do 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 is dance.